Howdy folks, it's General Soulfax here, and you're watching that episode of War Thunder Air Battles, and instead of doing a simulated battle video, I decided to do a realistic battle video. Now this replay was sent to me by Mr. BirDofPrey, which we're going to refer to as Mr. Bird for the rest of this video. He's flying his Focke-Wulf 190D9 on the best map in the game, Normandy. I'm sorry for the sarcasm, but I have absolutely nothing positive to say about Normandy. I think it's the worst map in the game, both in realistic battles and simulated battles, and you know what, I'm gonna use this video to try and explain why I think this map is so bad and has absolutely no place doing anything in simulated and realistic battle queues. So first things first, let's start with the layout of the map. Now, every map has bomb points on it, and on Normandy, bomb points are located for each team in opposite corners of the map, which is okay, and I have absolutely no problem with that. But what I do have is they are clustered in one small area, which means that in theory, well, not in theory, in practice, in tier 4 battles, you're going to see this a lot. One bomber is able to take out all 3 bases. Now, it doesn't sound so bad when you consider that bombers don't usually win matches in lower tiered battles, but when you're playing against tier 4 America with all the B-29s, B-14s, the B-24s, B-17s, excuse me, and B-24s in the world, you're gonna start hating this map. That wouldn't be such a big of a problem if the AA guns around the bases could actually take down enemy fighters and bombers. I mean, you would think since there's 3 times more guns in a very small area, they would be capable of taking out bombers at an altitude greater than 2 kilometers. Since the AA gunners are so completely useless, the only way to take down these bombers is to go over there and do it yourself, and there we come to another big problem. For some inexplicable reason that completely eludes me, Norway has air spawns for both sides, and that just makes absolutely no sense, because there are 2 usable airfields already on the map. I mean, 2 usable airfields. The Axis side gets a usable airfield, from which you basically spawn at. I mean, you spawn almost above the airfield at like 1 kilometer altitude, and the Allies get, of course, their carriers on the north side of the map. And I don't understand why would you give us air spawns when there's usable things to land and take off from. That really makes absolutely no sense. I mean, you can spawn on an airfield, there is an option to spawn on an airfield, but why would you? There's absolutely no reason to spawn on an airfield where everybody else is already spawning in the air with a lot of speed and some amount of altitude. To get back to what I was saying about the bombers, because everybody gets air spawns, that means that fighters can easily outclimb bombers and get to around 1 to 2 kilometers above them before the bombers get to the bomb points. Now what that means is, at least in realistic battles, that it's very hard for a bomber to actually successfully bomb out the bases. I mean, in realistic battle, at least in my experience, it's easy to take down bombers if you have the initial altitude advantage. In simulated battles, it's kind of a different story, because while in realistic battles 1 or maybe 2 fighters can take out 3 or maybe 4 bombers, in simulated battles, when you do your first initial pass on a bomber, and if you manage to take him out, if you don't manage to take him out, you're most likely going to be taking some fire yourself, which means that your plane is going to be damaged. And with the simulated battle flight models, it's very hard to actually get back into position and take out a bomber if you're damaged and can't climb, turn, do whatever you want to do as you were able to do at the beginning of the match. So we come to the conclusion that this map is not optimal for either fighter pilots or bomber pilots, but is it any good for attacker pilots? I mean, hell no, there's absolutely no ground targets to attack. And I'm not counting those little patrol boats that are trying to capture A. Because they're so hard to kill. There's so many of them, and if you go in there alone and all of their fire is concentrated on you, you're gonna get taken down after your 3rd or 4th pass. And I mean, for 4 ground kills in realistic, even in simulated battles, that's not a lot of experience or a lot of silver lions earned. The last point I want to make is about the airfield in the middle of the map. Now, I don't know what kind of drugs Gaijin's developers were on when they decided to add this airfield in this map, but whatever it is, I want some, because this is completely nonsensical, insane, it serves absolutely no purpose. At the beginning of every match, the A point is first controlled by the Axis, and if the patrol boats manage to make it all the way from the enemy bases towards the A point, the Allies will be able to capture the A point. But what's the point? I mean, what exactly is the point of that? That airfield has no significance in the match. If the Allies manage to capture it, the Axis lose a few points. If the Allies don't manage to capture it, nothing happens. There's absolutely no reason for this airfield to be in the exact middle of the map. absolutely no freaking reason. I just don't understand why they decided to put it in. And the flak guns are there just to annoy the living shit out of you because they're not able to hit anything. I've never seen anybody be shot down by these flak guns in the middle of Normandy. But yeah, I'm sorry for the rant, I just had to get it off my chest. I've had a stressful week, but let's continue with the video. So while I was busy ranting, Mr. Bird was very busy climbing and he got himself up to 7 kilometers altitude. And while I think that's a little bit too much, he's gonna prove me completely wrong because right beneath him there on a nice amount of speed is an F-82. And an F-82 has the ability to put on that very deadly gun pod, but I don't think this pilot decided to put it on. And Mr. Bird goes for a head-on here. That F-82 is like, yeah, I'm gonna get you, bro, I'm gonna get you. 1.5 kilometers shots in, rolls out of the way, first kill in the match, and immediately after that another contender appears. A lone P-51 on a high altitude really decides to go for another head-on with Mr. Bird, but in the last minute he decides to not to do that, tries to go under. Mr. Bird leads his shot, puts shots in. Second kill in what, like 20 seconds? I mean, that's some really nice flying. The first was not a very special kill, it was a nice kill but not very special, but the second kill on the P-51 was really nice leading. And now immediately after that, another P-51 decides to try his luck against Mr. Bird. He's having trouble getting guns on targets. P-51 starts shooting, misses completely. Mr. Bird puts shot in. Oh my god, so close to crashing into that. Gets his third kill in the match, takes some damage in the process, but yeah, that's a very explosive start to this replay. Well, it's not a start to this replay because I spent like 5 minutes ranting, but you get what I mean. So after taking out those 3 guys at altitude, Mr. Bird is the highest positioned plane on both the enemy and the friendly team. The only threat currently to him is a P-51 that's trying to climb after him. Now in the meantime, he's diving on this Focke-Wulf A8, the captured version, misses his first few shots. The A8 goes into a barrel roll and tries to get on his 6, but Mr. Bird is having none of that. He points his nose up and climbs away. Now that P-51 is still on his 6, but he is on a much lower energy state, which means that he's not going to be able to keep this tempo for very long. Tries to put a few shots in Mr. Bird, he misses completely, so no damage for Mr. Bird. I gotta give it to Mr. Bird here because he's flying the Focke-Wulf D9 very well and he's flying it as it's supposed to be flown. The D9, while it's a very nice combination of both dive capability, pure speed and turning ability, it's still best used as a pure boom and zoom fighter. And while Mr. D is climbing away to get some altitude, a lone BF-109G10, I believe, decides to join the fray and gives Mr. Bird the opportunity he needed. He gets both of those fighters on his 6, which means that Mr. Bird is gonna have a very easy job if he manages to slot behind those fighters. Now first he was thinking about going for the Focke-Wulf A8, but soon realized that the best course of action would be to focus on this P-51 because he's a much more dangerous target. Now P-51 goes into turn, Mr. Bird puts a few shots into him, sets him on fire, and that's basically GG for Mr. P-51. There's no way he's going to be able to put that fire out. 4th kill in the match. So with that P-51 out of the match, the only 2 planes remaining on the enemy team are a Spitfire that's fighting a BF-109 at altitude and this Focke-Wulf A8. And naturally, a Focke-Wulf A8 is no match for a D9, so Mr. Bird slots in on a 6, puts a few shots into him, unfortunately nothing critical because the A8 is able to go up and get some altitude and do a barrel roll and try to dogfight Mr. Bird. Now while that might seem like a good idea because they're both Focke-Wulfs, the D9 is a much later version of the Focke-Wulf, meaning it's better at, well, everything than the A8. And the A8 is notorious for being a very bad plane. I mean, it really does turn like a brick. I don't know if you noticed, but just a few seconds ago, that Spitfire that was fighting the BF-109 at altitude managed to crash, which makes this Focke-Wulf 190A8 the last enemy plane remaining. Now, Mr. B knows he's not in much of a hurry, and while the BF-109 is fighting the A8, he decides to go down here and try to take out a few ground targets. He gets one ground target, and while he pulls up, he notices that the A8 is trying to force a head-on, and he says, like, why not? I've had much luck with head-ons this match. Let's do it again. A8 is not able to turn into him, tries to go beneath him. Mr. B puts in a shot and sets him on fire, cuts his wing off. 5th kill, ace in a day. And I gotta say, this was a very fun match to watch because he really showed you that even though this plane doesn't have the environment of a Focke-Wulf 190A5 or even a Focke-Wulf 190F8, it's still a very good aircraft for head-ons. So with that last kill, the match is basically over. It's gonna be over in just a few seconds, and this video is also gonna be over in just a few seconds. My name has been Soulfax. I hope you enjoyed this video, and again, thank you, Mr. BirDofPrey, for sending me this replay. I hope you enjoyed. My name has been Soulfax for the second time. Yeah, I will see you next time. Goodbye.